This is Off the 11th Hour, and I'm your host, Nathaniel Stone, but we all know who the Lord of Hosts is. Say it with me in any dialect you so choose. YAHUAH Tsabaoth. Kodesh brothers and sisters, fellow members in the body of Messiah, and those in the world, thank you for giving me your attention in a world full of distractions. This is Season 3, Episode 5, Chapter 4 of a very important topic. They're all important topics. This topic on the 144,000, I feel, is a topic that I feel that I've been given I've been gifted a lot of information on. I have so much to share on it. I am going to create a longer, more comprehensive, isolated video series on this topic alone in a future season, but not now. But we're going to get a little bit of a precursor, but we're going to connect it in with the title of, publish the name of Yahuwah, the message that we're going over of B. Earl Allen. We have my wife with us today, who's going to be giving additional commentary and things that she feels spirit-led to share on. And we're going to get into the topic here. So let me get the thing set up. And without further ado, I'm going to get into Publish the Name of Yahuwah by B. Earl Allen's material. Remember, starting next episode, episode 6, chapter 5, we're going to be getting into more of the dialect debate. But this is the final chapter that we're going to be going over, which is the introductory and more of the meat of the matter, really, than I consider the pronunciation more of a milk matter in comparison to the name, the character, the power, and authority. So it's about character representation, not name pronunciation. But in the next episode and the episodes to come, we are going to get into name pronunciation. But this is the last chapter and a very important chapter. Arguably the most important of the four, you could say, or one of the most revelational of the four, is chapter 4 of the Wise Virgins with Oil. So we're going to get into that right away here. So we're told in the parable of the 10 virgins that the foolish virgins took their lamps and took no oil with them, but the wise virgins took oil in their vessels with their lamps. Matthew 25, 3 and 4. Now we know the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 wise and 5 foolish, and it's not to be discounted that their 10 tribe kingdom was scattered and mixed into the nations, which we can connect that at a point later on in this video. But 5 are wise and 5 are foolish, and so the parable, and it is a parable, it's called a parable. So a parable means that it's a similitude, it's a connection to other deeper topics. So what is the parable talking about? What is a virgin? What makes someone wise? What makes someone foolish? What is the lamp? What is the oil? Who is the master? Well, we should know who the master is. YAHUWAH HaMashiach, Jesus Christ in the common tongue. But what exactly is a lamp that it's talking about? So in Psalm 119, 105, it says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." So it's saying that the word, the scriptures, the truth is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. So therefore, a lamp has to do with his word and in these commandments. So in Zechariah 4:6, it says, my ruach saith Yahuwah Tsabaoth, says, what is the oil, right? My ruach saith Yahuwah Tsabaoth, oil for light, for the light. So the ruach is that oil that is for the light. And we're going to connect here in a little bit about more on oil in the name. But before we get into that, we store up the word, the scriptures, the study. This has to do with studying, right? Like, an important thing in a relationship that we are supposed to be establishing with our Creator is communication. Now, there's various different forms of communication. There's verbal communication, nonverbal communication, but we're going to look here, like, as far as like our spiritual walk that we're in, what kind of communication does the Father have with us? Well, according to John chapter 4, verse 20 through 24, it says that Elohim, God is a spirit, and those who worship him need to worship in spirit and in truth. So therefore, there's two, you can of our worship, of our spiritual walk that we're in, you can isolate it into two major components, and then from those two major components we can break it down further and analyze it further. Ultimately, it's our spiritual walk, but the spiritual walk has two major components to it: spirit and truth. What is the truth? Well, the truth is the written word. That is the word that we have in the physical, tangible sense when we look up our scriptures, when we look up things that are written down, that are in text form. That is the truth. That is the word. And then there's also the spirit. And what is the spirit? The spirit is the word is something that can be taught in like an academic, collegiate sense. It's something that can be studied. It's written down, and it's a cerebral thing. It's a knowledge-based thing. But the ruach is an experiential thing, right? The walking by the word, by the truth is cerebral, but walking by the ruach is experiential. It's something that is experienced. It's something that you can't necessarily teach someone in a written format. You can just basically teach concepts, understandings, patterns, and things that are applied. But then each person needs to be able to learn and how to decipher and to test all spirits, right? First John chapter 4, verse 1, that we're supposed to be testing these spirits. And that, when you read 1 through 6, it talks about, and by this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of delusion. So there's a spirit of delusion and a spirit of truth. And so we need to be able to test the spirits against the truth, against the written format. So the spirit and the truth are not conflicting. They are in harmony. So you could argue, where is it written down that Abraham was not to go down to Egypt? Where is it written down? Where is it written down? So it says that Yahuwah told Abraham not to go down to Egypt. Was it written down, or was that something that he understood in the spirit? When Abraham was in the land of Ur, when he was in the Babylonian kingdom, the Sumerian kingdom, and he was told to come out, where is it written that he's told to come out? Where is it written for Noah to build the ark in written format? It says that Yahuwah told him, Elohim told him, but where was that written down? Did he get that in the spirit, or did he get that in a written down format? Did a book just magically appear, or did he get an understanding from the spirit? So this is something that we need to get into. So the word, we store up the word in our vessels. And as it says that thy word is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path, that we store up the word in these vessels. And so that means that we're storing up this knowledge, this understanding of him, and that is this lamp that is able to contain the oil. Okay, well, if that is the lamp, then what is the oil? In Song of Solomon 1:3, it says, "Thy name is as oil poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love you." Remember, five wise virgins, 5 foolish virgins. They all were virgins, some wise and some foolish. So what is the oil? It says, "Thy name is oil poured forth." Remember, this is published the name of Yahuwah, so we're going to be getting into the name, the pronunciation later on in future episodes in this series. But right now, we're going to be talking about the characteristics, the power, the authority, the personification, the personality is the meat of the matter that we're talking about. So it's saying that thy name, thy character, thy power, characteristics, authority is as oil poured forth. So what is the oil? The oil is his name. And what is his name? It is his characteristics. And he is a ruach, and so we need to worship him in ruach and truth. Therefore, we need to have a command The Torah, the scriptures, the whole Bible is the Torah. The whole scriptures is instruction. So we need to have the written down instructions. This is the lamp, but then what is inside of that lamp? His ruach, the oil. It is his name. That is what is stored inside of that. So you can have the knowledge base of the scriptures. You can have every single thing memorized. But if you aren't also connected into ruach, then your understanding of the scriptures is not complete. If you don't have a real relationship with the Ruach Kodesh and you have a different name, a different characteristic, a different oil, so to speak, you have a different, something that's not olive oil, a different kind of oil, then it's not going to give the light that you need in order to be able to see in the darkness, to light your path as we're going out to the master. That's what the 5 wise virgins did, is that the lamp contain his character, his guidance, so to speak, that and as they're walking in spirit and truth, the light that was given, YAHUAH Mashiach is that light, and he is the living walking Torah. He exemplified how the written is to be applied into the walking. The knowledge is supposed to be applied into our kinetic understanding. The understanding, the potential, is to be applied into the kinetic, the action, the thing that is being applied directly. So that light needs to be the light, and it can't be distorted. We know in Second Corinthians chapter 11 verse 4, it says, I'll go there here real quick. I think I've covered this before, but we need to get moving forward because there is a lot to cover and time can get away quickly. But let's move over here to 2 Corinthians chapter 11. For indeed, if he who is coming proclaims another YAHUAH, another Jesus, whom we have not proclaimed, or if you receive a different ruach, which you have not received, or a different gospel, a different basora, which you have not accepted, you put up with it well enough. And as it says right here, that is an innocent maiden, or in King James, it will say that you are a chaste virgin to Christ that is there. So here, in connection with this, in this particular passage, 2 Corinthians 11, 2 through 4, it talks about this jealousy, that we're in marriage to one husband, and that we are to be this innocent virgin to Messiah, and that we are that the serpent deceived YAHUAH by trickery, so that the minds can be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Messiah. And then right after that, it talks about a different name, it talks about a different ruach, and a different good news, which you could connect a different commandment, a different set of commandments, a different gospel, a different message, a different good news of the kingdom. It is a different religion, if you want to put it that way. And it is a different name that in a different spirit connected with that different religion. So connecting that, we have that your name is oil poured forth, and connecting, and we're going to connect this in with the 144,000, and the 144,000 can be patterned with the 10 virgins, specifically the 5 wise virgins, because the 5 wise virgins had the right lamp, they had the proper basora, the gospel, they that good news, and they also had his oil, his name, his character, power, and authority inside of the word that is there. So let's move forward. And yeah, it's interesting in John 14:6 that the Ruach Kodesh helps us to rightly divide the word of truth. And that's Hebrews 4:8. We'll go there. In Hebrews 4:8, I think it's actually 4:12 now that I think about it. Maybe it was 8. It talks about that, here it is. It is 12, yes. For the word of Elohim is living and working and sharper than any two-edged sword, cutting through even to the dividing of nephesh and ruach, soul and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. And it says that in John 4:26 that this Ruach Kodesh helps us to bring remembrance of all things. Remember, we live in a dichotomy of a world. That's what the 6 days of creation was in Genesis chapter 1. It's more of like a creation of the dichotomy, right? You have light and darkness on day 1, and then day 2 you have waters above, waters below, and then the land. And then day 3 you have the different separations of the seed. In day 4 you have the different separations of the celestial bodies of light, the stars, the greater light, the sun, the lesser light to rule the night, the moon. You have this separation that is there. Day 5, you have the bird separation of different kinds of birds and different kinds of fishes in the sea. And then day 6, we have a separation of the animal kingdom, and then the separation of man that is there. It's this division that is there. And so therefore we live in this dichotomy, or this world to where there's differences between clean and unclean, and righteousness and unrighteousness, and set apart and profane. So we need the Ruach Kodesh to be able to bring these things to remembrance and to rightly divide the word of truth. And it specifically is the word, that sword, if you will, and this is why we're supposed to be trained as warriors, that the sword can cut through and divide with precision accuracy to know the difference between, well, that is wrong, that is right, and the demarcation line is right there. Because if we're trained with a sword, then we can also be trained with a scalpel. And trained with a scalpel is precision. And so someone that's why James chapter 3:1, YAHUAH chapter 3:1 talks about not everyone should be in the office of teacher, because they're held to a higher standard. And the reason why is because someone that has a deeper level of the minutia, of the intricacies of the different separations and the building blocks of a complete thing. So someone that's trained in the human body, that understands it not just on the cellular, but on the atomic or the subatomic level. Someone that has a very, very deep intrinsic understanding of the holistic aspect of just a man or a woman, the human race. Someone that is trained on that level, that is trained with a sword and with a scalpel, can see that there is a deficiency, that the body is not at ease. It is in discomfort. It is dis-ease. Therefore, someone that is trained can look and analyze with different tools of analyzing, and then recognize that there's something broken or something malfunctioning there, and they know what they need to do. So they can take that scalpel and rightly divide to be able to open up a flaw, to be able to repair it. And this is what we need. We need the word, the sword of truth, in order to be able to do that, to be able to rightly divide that. And we need the Ruach Kodesh in order to be able to also do that. The two work in harmony and hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And this is a message of the 144,000. And this is what makes the 5 virgins wise. So we cover this Song of Solomon. Your name is oil poured forth, therefore the virgins love you. They love because that name is that purified. It's that the good stuff, that pure Kodesh name that gives us that understanding, that characteristics. It's got that rich fragrance of aroma. You ever smell olive oil? It's got that rich fragrance that is there. It is pure. So the 144,000 are called virgins, and we're going to get into some things. Now, I do have to say, though, that B. Earl Allen, in this area, he made 2 mistakes that I caught in this particular chapter. Not necessarily large mistakes, but there are 2 mistakes that he made. But we're going to get. Oh, it's the next paragraph. But before we get in that, we'll go here. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. I saw that there are, let's say, your name is like oil, and he's talking about shemen. It's translated as oil, and I saw some, I don't know, shemen and shem. There's something that is like connect between them.
Yeah, the word. Let's go there. I'm gonna get over here. We'll go over here. That was Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 3. So as for fragrance, your oils are good. Your name is oil poured forth. Therefore, the young women, or the virgins, the maidens, love you. So this word oil, do we have it highlighted? Yeah, we have this word for good ointments. Why is that? It's our King James. It's so interesting here. Shemen here that we have, especially liquid from the olive, often perfumed. Shemen is Shin Mem Nun, as we can see here in the top here, that Shin Mem Nun. And the word for name, and let's look at that here. And that word for name here is Shem, just Shin Mem. So it's kind of, you could say it's a bit of an idiom, if you will. There's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek understanding to that. It has a depth to it, so it's kind of a play on words, a pun. It's saying that your name is oil, your shemen is Shem. There's even connection with I'm glad you brought that up, in the Hebrew word, that even the word for oil is connected with the word Shem. So oil can also be character, power, and authority, or characteristics, aroma, and in connected with olive oil, and specifically talking about his name as the olive oil that is in the lamp. Actually, I'm going to go there. Let's go there. It's Exodus chapter 27. Verse 20, it says, "And you are to command the children of Yasharal of Israel to bring clear oil, pressed olives for the light, to cause the lamp to burn continually." So here we have that this clear oil, this clear shemen, this clear oil is what is burned in the lamp, right? A menorah is not a candle. It's not a candle. Like you can see up in the upper right corner, I'm pointing up in there in the menorah. That menorah is an oil lamp, 7 oil lamps that are all connected in one solid object. But the oil is olive oil, and that olive oil is connected with his name, and even the word oil is connected with the word name too. It's connected with Shem, so you could say that is there. That explained?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So what's interesting here in the 144,000, man, there's so much information on this. Again, I have just episode after episode of data on this, and I don't have my notes pulled up. It's probably good, because I would go way over on time if I did. So the 144,000 called virgins because they have the unadulterated doctrine. You could almost say like the unadulterated oil. It is uncut. It's pure oil. It is not diluted oil. And so he's making some claims. Let me just read over this paragraph, and then we're going to go to Revelation chapter 7 and then 14. They definitely love the set apart name. Yeah, it's in their foreheads. So let's actually just go there now, and so in the 144,000 teaching, the 144,000 are actually only found in 2 locations that is mentioned with that number specifically. The characteristics of the 144,000, you could say, are scattered throughout the entire scriptures, here a little, there a little, line upon line, precept upon precept. But the 144,000 by the number itself, like by this number right here, 144,000, that is specifically only in 2 locations, and they're both in Revelation. One is in chapter 14, and the other one is in chapter 7, 3 and 4 through 8, specifically. So in Revelation chapter 14 can be broken down into different components. Chapter 14, verse 1 through 5 is the characteristics. In the word characteristics is the name, power, and authority. And so it is the name, the power, the authority, the characteristics, the personality that is attributed with the 144,000. verse 6 and 7 is the mission statement, and then the warning also, and the command issued forth that the 144,000 are to give. And then verse 8 is what happens to those who don't listen, or what is going to happen shortly after their message is given out. And then the judgment comes upon. And then after the judgment comes upon in verse 8, verse 9 through 11 has to do with what happens to those who didn't heed the warning. And then verse 12 is in connection as like coming back to the beginning of that. Here is the endurance of the kedoshim, the saints, G40 hagios in Greek. Here are those guarding the commands. There's that lamp, right? There's the word, and the amunah, the faith, the ruach kodesh, right, of Yahuwah Mashiach, of Yahushua, of Jesus Christ. So right back after we see the mark of the beast is upon the world, after Babylon the Great falls, in verse 8, Babel is fallen, that great city, and then the mark of the beast comes upon the world. It comes back to the beginning again about this endurance of the kedoshim, and it's specifically reminding you of spirit and truth. It's reminding you of the lamp and the oil, the commands of Elohim, and the amunah of Yahushua Mashiach, and it comes right back to that in full circle to what? The 144,000. And the 144,000, we'll get into this, Revelation 14:1, is that the Father's name is written upon their forehead. So there's that name, and that name is oil poured forth. So that oil, the anointing, they're anointed on their forehead, right? That are anointed upon their heads, which is also their foreheads. Kings were anointed, and they're anointed. That oil was poured forth upon the head. We see that when King Daud was anointed by Shemuel, by the prophet Samuel, is that oil was poured on his forehead. Here, the Father's name, that power, character, or authority is now upon their foreheads. So that's one of the characteristics of the 144,000. The voice is out of heaven. Before I go further, is that the Lamb is standing on Mount Sion. Now, this is the heavenly Mount Sion, the one that Moshe was told to make these things according to the pattern shown you on the mountain in Shamayim, in heaven. And that this 144,000 are up in Shamayim. They're caught away up there, and they're in Shamayim. So now they're up in heaven, and they have the Father's name, character, power, and authority upon their foreheads. And that when they speak, it's like a voice of many waters, right? It's the voice of loud thunder, like the voice of many waters. They're speaking in unison because all of their minds are in unison, not in like some weird perverted hive mind thing, but they all have the same understanding. The oil is all the same, the character, power, and authority, and as a prophet would say, thus said Yahuwah, and the ruach is in that person speaking forth out of that person's mouth. 144,000 people are speaking as of one mind because they're prophesying before the throne, and they're singing this renewed song, and this renewed song that only they're able to learn. Only the 144,000 who are redeemed where? From the earth. Therefore, they're not on earth because they're redeemed from the earth. They are those who are not defiled with women. Now, a lot of people, for they are maidens, they are virgins. ISR says maidens. King James or other translations will say virgins. Being married to a wife does not defile you. So there's got to be something more here. It can't just be defiled. There's got to be something more here, because being married to a wife is not a defiling action. So it is not. They were not defiled with women. It's not necessarily in that aspect that. I'll say it this way. I do believe that the physical helps us to understand the spiritual. So you could argue that they are physical virgins, and you could argue that the 144,000 are, but that would be, if anything, a milk of the matter. But the meat of the matter is that they are spiritual virgins. And this is what I'm going to focus on, because this is something that I can speak with absolute pure understanding on without any speculative questioning, is that they're not defiled with women, in that women are denoted with religion. There's a pure religion, and then there's all the harlotry and all of her harlot daughters that are impure or mixed. Babel, the great mixing. It is the great harlotry with the ways of the nations. She rides on the beast, which represents nations, with the Father's Torah, the Abrahamic false faiths, if you will. Those that say that they stem from Abraham, from Abraham's teachings, and walk in the way of Abraham, but not in truth nor in righteousness. And they are procreating with their mixed daughter harlotries, and then replicating, and as Galatians 4 says, that she who is married has less children than she who is not. Talking about the slave woman or the woman of promise, Sarah and Hagar, as he specifically says in Galatians chapter 4. So these are those who are not defiled with women, is because they're not defiled with the harlotry of Babylon the Great, of mixed worship. And why are they not with that mixed worship? Because they have the Father's name upon their foreheads. They have the pure Besorah HaMalkuth upon their foreheads. And that is why they are virgins. As we covered earlier in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 2 through 4, that we are to be innocent virgins before Messiah, before Christ. And then it talks about the deceit of Satan in verse 3. And then in verse 4, it talks about a different YAHUAH Mashiach, a different name, a different spirit, and a different gospel, a different Besorah that is there, because these are the daughter harlotries that is talking about. But those are the 144,000. They are called first fruits. Remember Romans chapter 11, if the first fruits are set apart, if the first fruits are holy, the lump is also. Remember that we're going to come back to that in Romans chapter 11 about the first fruits. I do believe that is talking about the 144,000 on top of many other many other facets that we can look at that gemstone of the beauty that is written in Romans chapter 11. But one of such is the first fruits is talking about the 144,000, and that the lump is the great crowd. And we're going to see that here momentarily. So these 144,000 are first fruits to Elohim and to the Lamb. Therefore, if there's first fruits, then there has to be second fruits, because it can't have first fruits unless there's second fruits, right? Otherwise it would just be the fruits. But they are specifically called first fruits, showing that there is a order that is there. Therefore, the first fruits are set apart. Then the second fruits, the lump, is also. We're going to see that here momentarily. And in their mouth was found no falsehood. Well, why is there no falsehood in their mouth? Because they have the pure understanding of the truth of the desire of Elohim. Actually, while I say that word, while I say that word, desire of Elohim, something triggered in my head, and I feel I need to go there. I have so much to share in so little time to fit this in an hour. Let's go into Romans chapter 2. And it talks that it is for not the hearers of the Torah are righteous in the sight of Elohim, in the sight of God, but the doers of the Torah shall be declared right. So it's not just hearing, but the doers, but still the Torah, the law, it's clearly not done away with, because it's not just those who hear the law, but those who do the law. But then it says that, see, you are called a Yahudi, someone who worships, confesses, right? Yahudi is after Yahudim, plural, or the man, Judah. And in the name Judah, it means to thank, to praise, and to confess sin and confess his name. Yada in Hebrew, the root word of Judah, or Uada. And this Uada and Yada, different translations say they will replace a Yod and a Wa, but regardless, on the dialect, a Yahudi, as we call it today, a Jew, is someone who thanks him and someone who praises him and who confesses sin and his name. So you are called a Yahudi. You're confessing his name, his character's power and authority, and you have an understanding. He's saying, and rest on the Torah, you make your boast in Elohim, and know the desire of Elohim. Well, and so therefore, and approve of what is superior, being instructed out of the law, out of the Torah. Therefore, the law gives you the desire, gives you the understanding of the desire of Elohim. And that we are an instructor of foolish ones and a teacher of babies, having the form of, and these babies have the form of knowledge and truth in the Torah. They have a form of it in that we teach one another, and it continues to go from there. So again, the law gives us the understanding of the desire of Elohim. In Romans chapter 3, verse 20, I believe, it says in verse B, for by the law, by the Torah, is the knowledge of sin. Therefore, you can't have an understanding of what sin is unless you have an understanding of the law. And the law gives you the understanding of the knowledge of sin. And the knowledge of sin gives you an understanding of the word of rightly dividing of this is clean and this is unclean, this is good and this is evil. And so this gives us this understanding that is there. So actually so in connecting that, all the dots that we have so far, not to get too off on the topic, to bring it back into where we're at in with the 144,000 and his name, and also in the 5 wise virgins, is that the 144,000 have his name, his oil, his character, his power, his personality, the understanding of the Torah upon their foreheads, and that there's no guile in their mouth, because from the abundance of the heart, the mouth does speak. From someone's understanding of what they're thinking upon, then their mouth speaks upon, and also their actions follow suit. So therefore, the 144,000 are blameless. There's no lie in their mouth, and it's because that they have that oil upon their foreheads. And we'll go there in the 144,000. And while we're here in Romans, just real quick, this is Romans chapter 11, just so that you see here. Verse 16, now if the first fruit is Kodesh, holy, G40 hagios in Greek, the lump is also. I'm going to make a very strong argument that this right here, first fruit, can be many understandings within the facet of the gemstone of this particular verse, but I'm going to say, according to this facet of understanding, is that the first fruit is set apart. That's the 144,000 are holy. But then the lump is also, that's the great crowd. And if the root is set apart, that's YAHUAH, right? The root, Yahushua Mashiach, the root is set apart, so are the branches. So he's saying basically that if a piece of the tree is set apart, then the whole tree is set apart, because it's one organism. Yahuwah Echad, right? Shema Yasharal, hear Israel, Yahuwah Elohim, the Lord our God, Yahuwah Echad, the Lord is one. And so the tree is one, the branches, the leaves, and the root is all connected into the same organism. So, but the first fruits, the 144,000 that is there. And so now, oh yeah, that's right. We wanted to go to Revelation 7. So in Revelation 7, we have here that do not harm the earth, the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim upon their forehead. So, and then it says, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000. So here's the other location of the 144,000 by specific number and characteristics. And so here we see that they are sealed, and we also see that in Revelation 14:1 that they have the name. So the seal is a name on the forehead, and that they're sealed out of all the tribes of Yasharal. I have a deeper teaching on why it's in this particular order: Judah, Reuben, Gad, and so on and so forth. It's the mission statement of the 144,000. But right after that, it says, and after this I looked and saw a great crowd, which no one was able to count. So with that, let's go back to where we were at, and connect that with over here, that It's on their foreheads. They're in heaven. And one of the reasons, the real Mount Zion in heaven is because the scripture says that they were redeemed from the earth. And remember that this Mount Zion in heaven is the same one that, O shining one, that's Isaiah Yeshayahu 14:12. It's where we get the word Lucifer from, the light bearer, false masquerading angel of light bearer. And this is a title, not his name. And this title, Lucifer, it says that I will exalt my throne above the stars of El. I will sit down on the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. So again, he's pointing to that this is in Shamayim. This is in heaven. People will try to say, oh, pronouncing the name is frivolous, unimportant. And you could say it's not as important as understanding the character, power, and authority, but it does have importance that is there for sure. And so, but right now we're going to wrap up the last of why his name, power, character, and authority is important. His name is important. His name is set apart and reverend is his name, Psalms 111:9. And that his works of his hands are verity and judgment. All his commandments are sure. They stand fast forever and ever. Malachi 3:6a, I am Yahuwah and I shall not, and within me there is no change. There's no change. James chapter 1 verse 17 and 18. There's no turning in the shadow of lights from the Father of lights. There's no change within him. Hebrews chapter 13, I think it's 7 or 8, that YAHUAH Mashiach is the same yesterday, today, and forever. There's no change. So that these commands are not changed. The parameters of the lamp does not change. And also the oil that goes into the lamp doesn't change. There's no change within that. So here we have, as he's going to connect, that in their mouth was found no guile. In other words, the truth was in their mouth. The YAHUAH says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So Messiah is in their mouth speaking. The Lamb leads them wherever they lead on. They are redeemed from among men. They are redeemed from the earth. There is no guile in their mouth. They are chaste virgins, not defiled with the harlotry of the mixings of Babel of great and her daughters. And it's interesting that it says that, his character, his law, characteristics is in their minds, and that they receive that seal, just as what John saw, that, that there's this crown upon them, and that it was first in their foreheads, and then they're sealed first in their mind, and then their actions so in Revelation 14, 1-5, we see the seal in the spiritual characteristics that applies. And then in 6 and 7, we see them carrying out these actions because of the warning of what happens in verse 8 through 11. And then verse 12 brings us back to, here's the endurance of the Kedoshim, those who have the spirit and the truth, the commands of Elohim, the law, the Torah, the instructions, and the Amunah, the faith of Messiah Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ in the common tongue. So says that one thing's for certain, that these wise virgins were not incensed or bothered nor irritated by a name study. Also, I will say, is they're not irritated by the name pronunciation debate. And this is something that we do need to get into, which is why I felt led to make this the opener of season 3. So much less singing the Father's name, like that name is music to their ears, and only they knew this new song, not that only they knew their name. Oh, and I'll mention really quick before I move forward, before I forget it, is that in Revelation chapter 20, as we know in verse 21, new heaven and new earth, renewed heaven and new earth, right? The former heaven and the former earth passed away, sea is no more. And then it's talking about this new Jerusalem comes down. And we see all the different aspects of New Jerusalem. And then here in chapter 22 of Revelation, talking about the river of life, and from the throne of Elohim and the Lamb, and continuing. And then look at this in verse 4. They shall see his face, and his name shall be upon their forehead. Meaning that every single person in New Jerusalem, whether you're the first fruits of the 144,000, or you're of the second and beyond fruits, or the great crowd fruits of those beyond, everyone has his name, character, power, authority on their forehead. In fact, you can't get into New Jerusalem unless you unless you have that. Let me see if is that this or this the previous. Yeah, right. So in verse 15, outside are the dogs and those who enchant with drugs and those who whore and the murderers and the idolaters and all who love and do falsehood, who love and do lie. You can't get into the city unless blessed are those doing his commands in verse 14. Now, side note, it's interesting in Revelation 22, it says, bless those who are doing his commands. What commands do you think he's talking about? The New Testament hadn't even been compiled yet in Revelation, arguably 95 AD, hadn't even been compiled yet. He's speaking to people that are still that understand the what we call the Old Testament, but that's a separate point there. So again, connecting back here, and this is where the first mistake here that he makes is, and he does a great work. However, I'm just going to make a little clarification here that he made. He says here that in Jeremiah 6:2 is a pure church. So he says that they weren't defiled with women. I agree with that. He says that a woman is symbolic of a church. I don't like the word church. Neither did William Tyndale in the Geneva Bible. They recognize that the word church means daughter of the sun god. Etymology, it means the daughter of Kirke or Circe or Cirque, which is where we get the word circus or circle or circumvent, because she is a rider or tamer of beasts. So that's why a circus, a three-ring circus, a circus is named after Circe, Kirke, the Greek false Elohim, the daughter of Helios, the sun god, and that word, the etymology of the word church, it has to do with sun god connection, but the semantics in that aside, and by the way, William Tyndale was essentially burned at the stake for this, burned at the cross for this, and so were other people that refused to put the word church in their scriptures. But that semantic aside, I do agree with what he's saying here, is that a woman is symbolic of an assembly, a pure assembly. It is a symbolic of an assembly of people, a congregation, ecclesia in Greek, if you will. In that a pure ecclesia, he says, as in Jeremiah 6:2, or a corrupt ecclesia, a corrupt congregation, a corrupt assembly, a mixed assembly, and her daughters in Revelation 17:5. Now, Revelation 17:5 is specifically upon her name on her forehead, a mystery, Babel the Great or Babylon the Great, mother of the harlots or mother of the prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. So it's in connection with that. That name there in Revelation 17:5 is a corrupt congregation, and also mentions in context in a way her daughters. Therefore, but then he's saying here in Jeremiah 6:2 that Jeremiah 6:2 is a representation of a pure church, and it's not. Read it in context on your own. We don't quite have the time to get into it, but Jeremiah 6:2 is not a pure congregation. It is getting destroyed because as it says later on in the chapter that she, as a well keeps its waters fresh, so too does Jerusalem. It says to come out of Jerusalem in verse 1, Jeremiah 6:1, come out of Jerusalem, my people, out of the midst of her. And then talking about her corruption, says that as a well keeps its waters fresh, so too is she keeping her evil fresh. So Jeremiah 6:2, he made a little mistake there. Contextually, it is not a congregation. What is a set apart congregation is in Revelation chapter 2 and 3, and Revelation chapter 1 at the very end, 1:20, the seven menorah in his hand, and the seven lamps, that is in Messiah's hand, and the seven Kohanim, the seven stars above them are that is a pure assembly. In Revelation chapter 2 and 3 talk about seven assemblies. They are going through purification, but you could say that those are through the purification to he who overcomes, to he who becomes pure, I shall give in blessings, right? So he gives warnings, proclamations, and then he gives like instruction to each of the seven assemblies, and then he gives what happens to those who become pure, who are overcome the world. An example of the purity is there. Again, they're not polluted with these churches and their errors. They instead go by sola scriptura, only scripture, letting scripture be its own interpreter. Right? Let Scripture define Scripture. That's actually like the key thing in Babylon the Great, in understanding Babylon the Great. Quit taking all your other ideas outside the Scriptures. The Scriptures tell us who Babylon the Great is verbatim, like in many different ways, tells us who it is. So if the Scriptures give us a clear definition of who Babylon the Great is, and you're holding on to something else because you don't want to be proven wrong or corrected, then you're not sola scriptura. You're not letting the Scripture be its own interpreter. But that's a side note. In First Ezra, which is Ezra chapter 3, depends on, it's the same book called different things. First Esdras or Ezra chapter 3, which has been removed from the Catholic Scriptures, which we have in apocryphal books. I would recommend anyone to read 1st and 2nd Esdras or 3rd and 4th Ezra. They are amazing books to read. It says here, I, Esdras, Ezra, saw upon Mount Zion a great people, whom I could not number, and they all praised Yahuwah with songs. And it says that in the midst of them were a young man of high stature. We're going to see in a minute, this is Messiah here. Taller than all the rest, and upon every one of their foreheads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. So I said to the angel, the Malach, and said, Sir, what are these? And he answered and said to me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing, and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of Yahuwah, right? Confessed the name, the character, power, and authority. They confessed his name, which is what the word Jew is supposed to mean. Yahudah, a Yahudim, a Jew, someone who is really a Jew, is confessing his name, character, power, and authority, and giving thanks to it, praise to it, and confessing his sin. And you can't confess sin unless you understand what sin is. And by the knowledge of the law, by the knowledge of Torah, you know, the Torah gives us the knowledge of sin. So, and it gives us the understanding of the desire of Elohim. So these are those that have washed their clothes, and they put off their mortal clothing, put on the immortal, right? First Corinthians chapter 15, verse 50 through 55 talks about that we have to remove our immortality, or our mortality for more immortality, and that we are we are changed in a twinkling of an eye. That we don't all sleep. It's a secret, as he says there. But he makes a mistake here, and the mistake that he made is that he's going to say here is that they are the 144,000. That these people that First Ezra is talking about, because see, here he says that this same group of people, and the same group of people as he's talking about are the 144,000, and he says this same group of people in Mount Zion, and I'm going to share with you that is not correct. It's partially correct, but not completely correct. As you see here, of the 144,000 in Revelation chapter 7, got to go quick, we don't have a whole lot of time left, that after this sealing happens, I looked in this and saw a great crowd, which no one was able to count, out of all nations and tribes and peoples and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in white robes and palm branches in their hands. And then here it says that they are dressed in robes. Like, who are these? They've come out of the great tribulation, having washed their robes and made them white in the blood, and that they are before the throne of Elohim day and night. And that they are there. So when we look at what is in this document here, this same group, he says they are the same group of people, 144,000, and it says that it's a great people whom I could not number. That's a characteristic of the great crowd, out of every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, not out of those who are sealed from the 12 tribes listed in Revelation 7. This is a great a great crowd, every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, which is what Revelation 14:6 says, that this angel flying over mid-heaven holding the everlasting gospel, everlasting Besorah, and goes into all the earth, into every nation, tribe, tongue, and people. That's where it is, and that their message goes here. It says that they had, where does it say that they received palms, And that is what it says in Revelation, you know, of the great crowd specifically. It says that they had palm branches in their hands, as Revelation 7:9 says. So this is the great crowd, not the 144,000. But the great crowd is able to get this message because the 144,000 deliver it, and the 144,000 are able to deliver it because Yahuwah sealed them with it. That's their mission that they are. So let's move forward. And interesting here in Ezra, it says, 2nd Esdras 2:46 and 47 says that, you know, who is this person that crowneth them and give them palms in their hands? It is the son of Elohim, that whom they have confessed in the world. That's what the word Jew means. Judah means they've confessed. They've confessed this sin and repented and washed their robes white. That is there. And so Messiah is spoken of here in Esdras. No wonder why they wanted to get rid of it in the Old Testament. But, you know, a separate note there. So they're both talking about how important the set apart name is. And the meat of the matter is that the name is important because it gives us the character, power, and authority, and it gives us a desire of Elohim, what is right, what is wrong. And then through that, we can walk properly and rightly divide the word of truth. That his oil, which is pure, refined oil, is that ruach, that spirit that is in there, and that light is Messiah himself, which exemplified how this walk is. But the command is that lamp, and the command being that lamp is the Torah, and you need to have the Torah and the Ruach Kodesh, the pure olive oil, name, character, and authority, in order to create that light. Both are needed. And this is what the 5 foolish virgins didn't have. So a good name is better than precious oil, Ecclesiastes 7:1. So let's go ahead and close things off. If there's anything that you may need to say, is there anything that you might need to add upon that?
No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I'll say this, as the pearl, a special pearl today, we know that we don't cast pearls before swine. This is something that I'll share here about the message, the secret mission of the 144,000, which is directly connected with publishing the name of Yahuwah, confessing the name. The 144,000 are sealed amongst the 12 tribes, and there's 144,000 of them. But as we know, the pattern is that they go in pairs of 2. We see that in Luke chapter 10, and we see that in Luke chapter 9. When the 12 apostles are sealed, go pairs of 2. And then when the 70 or 72 are sealed, they go in pairs of 2. They're given that mission that they go out. In pairs of 2, 144,000 divided by 2 is 72,000 pairs. And according to Genesis chapter 10, and also which the 70 elders represent, they are in a governing position over the 70 nations as the Father divides the nations, every nation, tribe, tongue, and people. The 70 nations, the 70 elders, there's 1,000 pairs for each of the 70 nations to give this pure message into. It has not yet happened yet. I do not believe the 144,000 are sealed yet. We're preparing and getting ourselves ready for this event, but I do not believe it's happened yet. But that also leaves 70,000 pairs, 1,000 for each of the 70 nations, and 1,000 pairs for the remnant of the 2-tribe kingdom, and 1,000 pairs for the remnant of the 10-tribe kingdom. There's 72,000 pairs, or 144,000, which their mission is to go into every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, all the earth, with the pure message. And that is the pearl. That's what we're waiting here in the future. This is in the preparation for the king. They are announcing this and beginning what we would call the second exodus of coming out of Babylon the Great before the beast consumes the world. And everyone worships the beast who do not have the seal upon their foreheads, as Revelation 9:4 says. So with that, remember, guard your heart, guard your soul, guard Torah, or pay the toll.